If you've been stuck in an endless loop of inaction, stay tuned. My name is Ginger Haithcox. I am the studio owner life coach, and today I am going over 3 reasons why dance studio owners get stuck in inaction and offering some tips on how to get unstuck. So, today I wanted to start with the 3 reasons why this is happening, and more importantly, that you are not alone. If you are the person who is struggling to just get things done, to just take action on the things that you want to do or feel like you need to do, you are not alone. When I speak to my clients in my coaching program, one of the things that I'm finding is a trending thing is that people struggle with taking action, taking the next step in their business, whether it's implementing a new program idea, talking to customers, creating communications for staff, implementing a training or a tool. There's so many of us that are just in that state of inaction. So we know that running a studio requires constant decisions, but sometimes we just freeze up instead of moving forward. I want to talk about these 3 reasons. And so the first one is the freeze response. The second reason is a fear of failure. And third is overwhelm and mental load. So let's get right to it. The first reason why people are stuck in inaction is the freeze response. Most of us are familiar with the fight or flight, right? Fight or flight is when something happens, an event occurs, and we have a choice when put up against a challenge. We can fight it, confront it head on, just go right for it. Um, or we can do flight, and that's where we avoid it. We run the other direction, right? So, what do you do when maybe you're attacked in the wild? That basic human response, or fight or flight, is where we've been taught that we come up with the decision in a split second about what to do when something comes as a challenge. But we're not cavemen anymore, right? We're not living in a time where we're actively being chased by a bear. So fight or flight is not often what people are doing on the day-to-day basis, but what I'm finding is they are doing the other F, freezing. They're shutting down. They're not taking action. They're standing still and not making a decision either way. And it's interesting because inaction is in fact an action in itself. It is saying, no, I'm just not going to deal, or maybe it'll just go away on its own. So when we're here, you can end up in this place of freezing, maybe from a past trauma. Maybe something happened with your staff that's triggering you, or the customers, or maybe there's financial pressures that have got you in this place of freezing because you feel as though um, maybe the way that people will react to what you do in that action, um, that's going to not be a good thing, right? We're afraid of how people will react to what we say or do, so we choose to do nothing. So, but the consequence is that the situation will get worse. Tension will build and opportunities will begin to slip by. One of the things that I remember in the life coach school, Brooke Castillo said, is that the effort and energy to avoid doing something is so much greater than just doing it, right? How do we approach these situations and realize that it's actually causing us more work to avoid just doing the thing that we need or want to do? So here's some tips on how to get unstuck. The first one is that you should recognize the freeze response as normal. It is not a weakness. Everyone goes through this, no matter how rich or poor or tall or small. Everyone goes through this, right? It's not a weakness. So What I like to tell people is when you find yourself in a place of inaction, it's important to just make a mental note. Hmm, I notice now that I'm not taking action on this. And then I would invite you to be curious. The next step I would say is to just think about, why is that? Why am I not taking action for this particular item? What happens is, if we get to this place and this issue, concern, or whatever starts to fester, it can feel as if it's an overwhelming thing that's just growing and growing. So I'd like to say that the next step to help you feel, unstuck, once you discover why you are not taking action, is to just take a small step. Take a small step forward. So for some of you, it's, let me just draft the email that I'm going to send to her. Maybe it's, I'm going to schedule the meeting with that staff person. Maybe it's just something small and incremental. That'll be the next logical step before, the big thing. Break it down into smaller pieces. And I want to say something um, about just judging ourselves. Some of the folks that I talk to, when they are realizing that they're not taking action, they may judge themselves. They might say, "Oh, I'm just bad at that." Or, "I really should do this and I should do that." And they're shooting all over themselves. They might just judge themselves very harshly. And I invite you to just be curious about why you're not taking action instead of judgmental, right? So be curious instead of judgmental. Now, if you think about a pressure gauge, maybe a pressure cooker or something, right? If you slowly release and open up that valve a little bit, you get that hissing sound, right? It's releasing the pressure a little bit. That's what taking a small step forward will do, right? And as you release some of that pressure, it's easier to open up as time goes on. It's easier when you release the pressure. And then once you've done that, you've scheduled the meeting, you've drafted the email, right? It's easier then and safer then to take the lid off of the thing. So, next, I want to go into reason number 2 why studio owners get stuck, and that's a fear of failure. This can show up in any number of ways, but what I'm seeing is sometimes people have this pressure to be perfect, to make all the right decisions, to have the most students, the biggest staff, the most beautiful building, all these things that just has to be perfect. It has to look right. It has to be this. We have to have these headpieces that we can't afford. We have to bring in that choreographer that we can't afford, right? Fear of failure can also feel like, what if? What if no one signs up? What if the parents push back and I look foolish? What if this happens? Oh, I worry if we do this, or this is the kind of thing that freezes us, right? And so what happens is that inaction becomes a way to protect against embarrassment, but the reality is it's blocking success. Our very effort to avoid failure also prevents us from success. Because this is what happens, right? You cannot succeed at something if you never even try to do it. Nobody ever ran a successful business by sitting on the couch and doing nothing. It's through taking action, consistently taking action, that you will start to move forward. There are going to be times when you make mistakes. And if you make a mistake, you're going to learn from it. You're going to work this like a muscle. The other day, I was talking to my son about the brain and how it is similar to building muscle, right? So when you start out, you'll find that you might start with a 3 or 5 pound weight and you're lifting, and then you can progress on to a 10, a 15, 20 pound weight, right? You're building muscle, and it's through doing that action of actually working at it that you're able to lift and push and do all of that more, right? But no one would say you're a failure if you've never lifted weights before and you can't lift a 75-pound weight. No one would say you're a failure. Absolutely not. What they would say is, well, start with a smaller weight. You'll get there. You'll work your way up. It's the same thing that happens with our brain. When we don't take action, we avoid things and we freeze up. We don't give our brain the workout that it needs to build the skills to handle bigger challenges. Handle those little challenges, get those things out of the way, work your way through them, and you will build up the brain power and ability to handle those larger things. If you want to move into a new facility or open up a second location, if you want to purchase something large for your studio, you want to hire some full timers, you want to do these big things, look at how you're handling some of the smaller things. If you look at things and say, that's too much, that's too big, that could never happen, I'm not even going to get started on it because I can't do that, or people don't like it if I do that. What if instead you say, how do I build up my mental muscle? My mental muscle of making decisions, regardless of what that nagging voice in our brain says, like, people aren't going to like that. You really shouldn't do that. Mrs. Smith is going to say something. You know, so and so is going to text you. You know, they're going to put that in their WhatsApp group, right? Instead of that nagging voice getting a chance to win, what if instead of being afraid of failure, it's, I'm going to learn something in this process. I'm going to learn how to get customer feedback. I'm going to learn how to create and add new programs to my studio. I'm going to learn new ways to manage money, right? I'm going to learn something. So it's success or learning. Failure is not what's happening. I would almost argue that the only true failure is when you quit and give up without ever trying, right? Quitting and changing course because you made a decision that this is the new direction you're going into is not failure. Quitting and going to a different building because that's what you can afford is not a failure. Okay? Taking action and giving it a go is not failure. It's going to lead to either a success or a learning. And it is through learning and trying again, that you'll get it. I know some of you might remember there was at one point people quoted like it was at least 50 to like several hundred versions of the light bulb before like Thomas Edison and his company they figured out how to make a light bulb properly. Could you imagine what would have happened if they had have given up after the first try, or they were scared that they were going to fail? Oh, this new electricity thing, it will never work, so we're not even going to do it. People aren't going to like electricity. They really like candlelight. The candle makers are going to be angry with us, right? That's that nagging voice on that side of us, on our shoulder, telling us that, no, 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 don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, right? So instead of that fear of failure, remember that every step forward is just data, right? It's data that helps us to learn. Things are not necessarily permanent decisions. And instead of thinking of a misstep as something horrible, it's just progress, right? You're working through the iterations until you get it right. So now the third reason why studio owners are stuck in indecision or inaction rather is overwhelm and mental load. When you've got too many things at once and brain fog, you're totally paralyzed, right? You can have administrative work, teaching, managing staff, dealing with customers. Some of us ladies, right? Perimenopause, menopause, all these things going on. Decision fatigue, brain fog, just feeling overwhelmed can do this to you. And the thing is, nothing is getting done because everything feels equally urgent. So, one of the things that I like to do to get unstuck when the mental load is just too much is find a way to disrupt the pattern. So, maybe it's taking a day off. Maybe it's going for a walk in nature, changing my work location. This summer, I actually enjoyed very much working from my local library. Just having a quiet space that was not my home office ended up being one of the most productive times for me this summer because I was not in my normal environment. Maybe it's instead of saying no to your friend to get together for coffee, you just say yes and you go and you spend that, hour out of your day just to give your mind a break. Give yourself permission to pause and reset so that you can return with clarity. So now I just want to wrap this thing up. There's three main reasons I'm seeing with my clients about why they are stuck in inaction. It's that freeze response, fear of failure, and the overwhelm and mental load. Now, here's the great thing, right? When you discover why you're not taking action, and then you get curious about why that's happening, we're able to work through that and get to the other side. How to diagnose ourselves and then get ourselves to that next step of what needs to happen in order to move forward and start taking action in some way. Now, I invite you, this is the time of year when everybody is like, enrollment is running and performances are getting planned, company and competition groups are busy. All these things are going on at once. It's back to school time in the US. And I invite you to share today's episode with another studio owner. Maybe this will help them if they are feeling stuck in inaction at any point this fall. And if you are interested in one-on-one coaching with me, visit my website. It's gingerhaithcox.com/coaching. And you could book a free 15-minute breakthrough call. We're going to just go through where you're at, what's got you stuck, and figure out what's the next right step for you. I thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.